Challenges that humanity faces are different in different ages and geographies as well. Today, here, the core humanist issues relate to human rights, scientific integrity, and the rights and liberties that flow from them. And under that framework, we advocate for civil rights for ethnic minorities, LGBTQ rights, women's rights, secular government, peace, reproductive freedoms, and of course, the environment. Thanks everyone. It's really an honor to be here and be able to address this group of people, many of whom I know and admire, and some of whom I'm getting to know and admire, so thank you. As humanists, as ethical culturists, even though we value deed over creed, our convictions still matter. Even though how we believe is more fundamental to humanism than what we believe, that doesn't mean we can't find consensus about what makes sense based on humanist principles and how they apply to the world around us. When it comes to humanism, I argue, by the way, that our worldview is really foundational on two principles. The first being reason, which is fundamental to humanism. It's unflagging dedication to the scientific method, which we rely upon because it has been proven reliable. And when you're thinking about making daily decisions based on the scientific method, keep in mind that science isn't just something done by PhDs and lab coats and some ivory tower institutions. It's what we do every single day. When a young child picks up some food from her high chair and throws it on the ground to see what happens, that's practicing science. The second principle is empathy, the capacity to recognize and share feelings experienced by others. It's through the cultivation of empathy that we develop a deep-seated compassion for humankind and the world at large. Not only does empathy give rise to compassion, but by understanding others, being able to walk in their shoes, we can intuit an egalitarian-based sense of fairness. And this principle of egalitarianism is the conviction that humans are basically equal despite differences and aptitude, and that each person should be treated as having inherent worth. When it comes to the environment, starting with reason means that once we're exposed to the evidence of shrinking glaciers, rising surface temperatures, and rising sea levels, we're likely to draw the obvious conclusion that climate change is both real and accelerating. It also means accepting what we've learned about how we are the perpetrators of species extinction, infertile soils, undrinkable waters, and similar hardships. And because we realize that we are part of that process, we're more likely to take responsibility for correcting our course. Not expecting any higher power to save us at the last minute, we're more likely than many to accept that now is the time for us to buckle down and accept some sacrifices in order that generations to come will have a planet to enjoy. In our compassion for the plight of others, we can see that environmental problems disproportionately impact minorities. For instance, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, 71% of African Americans live in counties that violate federal air pollution standards. Blacks are 3 times more likely to die from asthma-related problems than whites. Many communities of color lack safe drinking water, swim near waste-contaminated beaches, live near polluted floodwaters. And indigent Black and brown children are 8 times more likely to be poisoned by lead. The growing climate change problem means that such communities will soon have to pay more for their basic necessities as prices outstrip growth in wages. So as humanists, we can see an additional responsibility to address environmental concerns because it's part of our support for social justice. While humans may be the most intelligent life on the planet, other animals are quite intelligent as well, and sometimes better community members than we are. In some ways, humans may be the biggest blight on our planet, killing off species, nearly eliminating life in some geographies, and accelerating climate change. But certainly that doesn't mean we should be eradicating ourselves, because we know we can do better. We are smart enough and capable enough to improve the quality of life on this planet, not just for ourselves, but for other life as well. Certainly, humanity benefited over the past century from technological innovations, societal changes that have allowed us to reduce infant mortality and live longer, healthier lives than ever before. But this is not without its consequences. As the planet and governments around the world struggle to deal with rapid global population increases. As more of our children survive infancy, something that just 100 years ago was not a guarantee, they develop into adults who drive cars, eat livestock and crops, and have large families of their own due to choice, faith, or lack of family planning resources. This is causing our planet to suffer, and we're finding that things like food, jobs, and education are not guaranteed. Today, environmentalists David Suzuki, Sylvia Earle, Lester Brown, and along with allies like Al Gore and Jane Goodall, are confronting these challenges instead of fleeing from them, something we should join in doing. This is why it's so important to support the efforts of governments and private organizations that seek to promote family planning and help people cooperatively decide to reduce population growth and live sustainable lifestyles. Programs that educate us about food waste, distribute contraception, help combat environmental degradation, which is absolutely crucial if our children and grandchildren are to live in a world that can sustain them. The United Nations recognized this need for action in a recent report which stated the now obvious: we must act now to halt the alarming pace of climate change and environmental degradation which pose unprecedented threats to humanity. We humans have the ability and responsibility to protect our planet. While there's no silver bullet answer to the ecological conundrums that we now face, waiting for disaster is not a humanist option. So let's use all we know to alleviate the problems now. Use humanist reasoning to find better solutions for our future. We humanists help ourselves by being active in environmental justice as well as other social justice measures. Being a humanist should suggest that we recognize the responsibility to maintain the Earth as an interesting and wonderful place to live. Its plants, animals, lakes, and skies need to be preserved, not turned into junk piles, toxic dumps, and deforested wastelands. We need to include kindness to non-human animals because cruelty or indifference to suffering is not a sign of a joyful life being well lived. We need to check our population growth because we don't need more and more individuals too stressed and struggling for survival to even enjoy a walk in the forest. And we need to make the world a better place for ourselves, for future generations, and for all life as we know it. These are core to humanism.